My name is Cindy Carpentieri, and I'm interviewing Amber Brannon for the Georgia State University's Women's March Oral History Project. The date is July 27th, 2017, and the interview is taking place at Georgia State University. Okay, so I'm going to start with some, you've seen the questions already, but what year were you born and where?
1977.
Okay, where were you born?
Douglasville, Georgia.
And can you describe your family's political leanings?
They were Democratic until Obama was elected. And then they went, and they became Republicans.
Really? Why
Yes.
when you say they were Democratic leaning before?
I was raised Democratic.
And
I
were-
was Democratic from the time I was born. You know, my dad was blue collar.
Uh-huh.
He grew up with parents that were deaf, and so, you know, he was used to having to, in inner city Atlanta, and so, you know, they depended on their friends and neighbors. So it was a very blue collar Democratic background. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Did you guys talk about politics when you were growing up?
Yeah, but my dad was a hippie, so it was all peace, love, and happiness. That's why he grew up in downtown Atlanta, in Sylvan Hills.
Oh.
But he was a hippie, so that's why he moved us out to Villa Rica, which is where I grew up, because it was 10 acres of land with a log cabin on it. He was a hippie. He wanted to be closer to nature and animals and all that kind of stuff.
So why, what were their misgivings about Obama?
Well, my dad passed away, but the only thing I have been able to, and I mean, honestly, it all comes down to race. That's the only thing I can find that differentiates him, can't even say the word right, differentiates him from prior presidents is the color of his skin.
But nobody said that. Or did anyone say that?
Well, I finally called them out on it, and they were like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. They're one of those people that's, well, I'm not racist, but, yeah, I didn't realize my family was this bad up until around when Obama got into power is when I started seeing a lot of sides to family members, to friends, to all sorts of people that I just never would have. You don't expect to hear the stuff that comes out of their mouth.
Yeah, it's disappointing sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
So what political party do you support?
I'm liberal. Very liberal.
And what is your profession?
I'm an admin,
Okay.
administrator. I've done, you know, human resources, office coordination, project coordination, all that type of stuff.
Okay. And have you been involved in political activities in the past prior to the Women's March?
No, and I think one of the reasons being is that up until about, 10, 12 years ago, a lot of the stuff that I just took for granted that people believed, that I believed, I thought other people believed, and I didn't realize it until I, I don't know if it was my age coming into it or if it was just the political, what's going on in the country. But then I started realizing, I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't what everybody thinks. This isn't just, why shouldn't, gays and lesbians be able to get married? What? That doesn't make any sense. And that's when I started realizing that my views were a lot different.
So at that point, is that when you started becoming more politically active, or was there a lag between you started realizing this and when you did something?
No, it was when some of both. When I started realizing my views were different than a lot of the, population, I started looking into why. How did I go this way? And a lot of people I went to school with went this way. And so I started, looking into our histories, and one, I think it had a lot to do with my dad being a hippie growing up. I was raised in a peace, love, and happiness household. Yeah. And, coming from that, and, there were no guns in the house, there were none of this kind of stuff, to seeing how much he suffered and what my family went through when my dad, he passed away from a stroke. But before that, we spent, 3 years. He had one stroke in 97, 97, and then the second one 3 years later, 96 and then 99, yeah. But in between that time, I saw my parents struggle so much because of, with the health insurance and all that kind of stuff, and to see how if we would have been in a rich family, his entire health care he would have been treated differently. We wouldn't have lost, my parents lost their house, they lost everything because of what happened, going on that path. And so now I've totally lost train of thought, but.
No, that's good. I was actually gonna ask what his health was like between that first stroke and the
Not
second.
good.
Really?
He was paralyzed on the right side of his body, and he was brain damaged severely. So he would have his good days and his bad days. Sometimes I would talk to him, and he would, when it first happened, I went back to Georgia Southern, that's where I was going to school at the time, and I would call and I would talk to him, and sometimes he would think I was still in high school, and then other times he would know what was going on, and then at other times he would really know what was going on, and he would get so mad because he couldn't do the stuff that,
Sure.
he's a really strong guy, very manual labor intensive, so he's used to doing everything, fixing everything, and once it happened, he lost all abilities to do that.
Yeah, what about your mom? Was she working during this time, or?
Both of them were working. He was actually on his way to work when he had the first stroke. Both of them were working up until he had the first stroke, and then afterwards, obviously, Dad couldn't work, and Mom had to quit work because he had to have a full-time caretaker.
Which, this is kind of a synopsis of what, this whole healthcare debate that's going on right now.
Yeah.
Is, you've seen it up close and personal. How much do you think that has influenced your passion for what's going on?
A lot.
now?
Well, it's just so weird because, like I said, my parents, and I guess we could talk specifically my mom, since she's the one that's still here. Like I said, growing up, she was always, she was a Democrat. That's who we are. And that's how, I was raised. And to watch her, now I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, talking about my dad just makes me get all.
Oh, yeah, it's bringing up a lot of stuff, and if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to, but, what I had asked is how much of that has influenced your passion about this, and.
So it's weird that I took, what happened to him, and I saw, how things could have been different if certain things would have been in place.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to go this direction, whereas my mom, for some reason, she was on the same path as me, but when Obama got elected president, she has gone off and gone the other way, and she's thinking the Republicans would have been able to save our entire family. Like, they would have been able to stop all this from happening to us.
Wow, how much do you guys talk about that, or do you now?
We're a pretty open family. We pretty much talk about whatever we want.
Yeah.
I'm pretty vocal.
That I know.
So trying to keep a lid on my mouth is really hard. But it's gotten to the point now to where it's become almost, there's nothing to talk about because she's not going to change my mind. I'm not going to change her mind. She just repeats back exactly what's being said on Fox News. Like, not even a change of phrase or anything.
What does she think about your current political activism and you're going to the march and things like that?
She's not happy at all.
How do you know?
Oh, because she's told me. And she posts stuff on Facebook and makes their comments and things like that. But I don't understand. I don't know why she is so unhappy with me on that, because here I am, especially with the Women's March, it's like women's rights. I have the right to do what I want with my body, and no one else has the right to do that. And she'll say that, but yet in the same breath, she'll be like, oh, but, it's murder for someone to have an abortion. I'm like, one, Mom, if you're going to sit here as a Christian woman, as you claim to be, if you're going to sit here and say you're a Christian woman, then you don't have the right to judge. So that's number one. Number two, church and state are supposed to be separate. Roe versus Wade is still in effect, so abortions are legal. You're going to have to get over that. But she just gets hung up on that one issue to where so she thinks that, like, we shouldn't march about, because anything to do with women's rights is bad. Because,
So-
oh, no, go ahead.
Was that her sticking point as far as why are you marching? Was she upset that you were marching because it supported something that she didn't?
She was upset because I was marching because she thought I was wanting to kill children. She was upset that I was marching because it was going against our current president. She was upset that I was marching because I was standing up for refugees and immigrants because they're all trying to kill us. Because Muslims don't believe in God. And they all want to kill us, so why do we want them in our country?
Is she active at all politically, or has she ever been, or was your dad active?
No, my dad was too busy being a hippie.
Yeah.
A little too busy doing some other stuff, but no, she's never been politically involved. She is all about owning someone on some Facebook, though.
It's brought out the political activist in all of us, some of that.
What is amazing to me is my mom and I, we've always had disagreements on certain issues, but we've always been able to talk to each other on a factual level.
Yeah.
But now with this whole thing, you know, well, you have your facts, I have my facts.
Is that what she says?
Yeah, she'll say that, and I'm just like, no, Mother, there's a difference between facts and opinion. Facts are facts. There's nothing you can do about this. Now, what you take and do with them, what you think of them is your opinion, and that can differentiate. But the bottom line is, I mean, this is how it is. You can't do anything about this. You can't say, well, no, just because you don't believe it. You can't say, no, I don't agree with that. That's just your opinion. No, Mom. It's a fact. And so our arguments have gone from, you know, fact versus fact, well, here's my opinion, to, well, those are your facts and these are my facts. So we can't even have a decent argument because nothing she says has any standing on any factual basis. How can you argue with somebody when they don't have anything to say to back it up other than, well, that's not how I've seen it?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a very interesting political climate right now.
Yes.
Let's talk about something maybe a little bit more happy, which is, let's talk about January 21st.
That was a good day.
I know. So what did you do on that day?
Well, I sat at my house and I drove my neighbor Cindy absolutely bonkers.
That's me.
No, but we got together and we were like, let's do it. And so we went to the march.
Now, did you have friends?
I
You
had
other
friends.
friends that were gonna go first,
Mhm.
right? Can you
Had
talk
a
about
couple
how that
different
happened?
groups of couple different girlfriends that were planning on going, but because the weather was so crazy, I mean, it was storming, torrential downpours. You know, I had some that were coming from the north side, it was pouring down right there, and then some of them were coming from, you know, Kirkwood, and then we'd pour in there, and then it was just lightning, and so everybody kept just kind of wavering, going, you know. And so that's, you know, thankfully we were talking, it's like, screw it, let's just go.
Mhm.
So, yeah, but it would have been really cool to have gone with my friend Annie, who lives over in Kennesaw now, because she's very Republican. And
And she was going to go to the march?
she did come,
Oh, wow.
yeah. But I mean, she's very Republican, Catholic, whole 9 yards, and she's always been, you know, supportive of the Republican Party up until this whole issue with Trump has come about. And she's, you know, always kept her to herself and kind of quiet, but when she realized that our rights were being taken away, that's when she kind of put her foot down and just like, nope, not gonna take it.
That's interesting. I bet you guys have had some interesting conversations.
I want to talk to her more. I'd like to, because I mean, I know now that, you know, you have to make sure too that, and I'm guilty of this, when someone says they're part of the Republican Party, I make the assumption that they like Trump. And so I'm assuming it's both ways, when in reality it's more like a Venn diagram than, you know, just like every other climate. But I mean, this one's a lot different than normal. I mean, a lot of Republicans can't stand Trump. But but they're not standing up to him either,
Exactly.
which is another.
Oh, why did you want to go out and march that day on January 21st?
God, I'm glad you can remember that. Because it had just gotten to a point where I had to do something. I mean, I knew, it was so funny, I was watching this interview, Michael Moore was on Stephen Colbert, and I was watching it earlier, and he was talking about how this time last year, he was telling everybody Trump is gonna win, and nobody would listen to him. And I'm sitting here going, no, he is going to win, people, wake up, and everybody kept saying, no, Amber, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, no, my eyes and ears are out in Douglasville, where I grew up, and those are some of the most bumblefuck people you've ever met in your entire life. I spent 20 years with these people and did not realize it until now, that they are dumb and they are gonna vote for Trump. And so, I mean, I knew it was coming, and so it just kept building, and then when it happened, it was kind of just like, it just, okay, everything I said was gonna happen, and then it just started from the time he was, said he was gonna be elected until the time, the inauguration, until all this, every single day, and it's still going on. I mean, here we are 7 months later, and we're still, almost every day he drops another bomb. And you can only take so much if your rights just being scraped away, and it's not just my rights, but it's the rights of these other people that don't have the time, that don't have the place, don't have the money to stand up for themselves. And I mean, they're so busy working their fingers to the bones that somebody's got to stand up for them. And that's where I've never been able to sit back and just, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, no. I always, it's just not in me, I have to help. And being empathetic in the climate today is not, it's not a very good place to be. Because it's hard.
That's a good point, because I was thinking it's hard, but somebody has to do it, like you just said.
Mhm.
And you and I watched the election results together.
Mhm.
At what point, and I don't remember exactly when the march was announced, but I think it was later that week, at what point did you decide to actually go to the march?
As soon as I heard about the march, I was like, I'm in. And then, you waver back and forth, but when it came down to that day, and like I said, you just keep hearing all this stuff, and you keep seeing all this stuff that he's saying he's gonna put in place, and he's gonna do this, and he's gonna do that, and it's just like you had no choice. I mean, I had to go. I had to do something with all of this anger, and not just anger, but I mean, scared. Here I'm scared, these people are gonna try to come in and take over my body. No. These people they're trying to take away, this presidency is just, he's stomping on every single right that we as Americans, they want to, Republicans always talk about how liberals do not believe in this country and are not, patriotic and all this kind of stuff. I am more patriotic than pretty much any fool that you can set up here, because I will take what that says in the Constitution and I will fight for everything for you to have the right to what's given to you in the Constitution. And if there's something in the Constitution that I don't agree with, then I will fight to get that corrected. But that's my right as an American. And that's what being American means, standing up for what you believe in and standing up for other people's rights also.
Yeah. So when you came out on that day, did you think, because clearly that's a part of, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, did you think that many other people, what did you think of how big the crowd was compared to what you expected?
I was blown away. I mean, especially because the weather had been so bad. And to see that many people were still able to pull together and stand up, and it wasn't just women, but it was men, all races. I can't look at you.
Well, because I keep thinking, like, just talking about this, do you remember when we came out of the Civic Center MARTA station and saw it? Like, I remember, like, it took my breath away, and I will never forget that moment. Do you remember that? I took your picture with the crowd in the background.
I mean, we were just blown away. I mean, I never would have expected that many people. I mean, now I'm sitting here looking back and I'm like, oh my God, could you imagine if it would have been great weather, day of great weather, normal Georgia weather, how many people would have come out for that? And if it would have been, if they were to have the Women's March today, I think it would be 4 times as big. I mean, maybe even more than that, just because of everything that's gone on since then and everything that's being pulled away from us.
Yeah.
That I think a lot more people will stand. It's like the cute little couple. Remember when we were on MARTA?
Uh-huh.
And you see this adorable little couple, and you could tell they were completely out of their element. And I don't even know. We were so confused because we were like, what the heck are they doing here?
Yeah, can you describe them a little bit more?
Yeah, it was this older couple. They were probably, I would say, in their 60s, and they were from, was it South Georgia?
Yeah, it was like south of Atlanta by a significant amount.
Yeah, it was about 30 miles outside of Atlanta. Would not expecting them to be there at all. And we asked the lady was sitting there and her husband. Well, we found out that was her husband, but we were like, well, what brings you out here? And the woman just kind of sat there and she was just like, she just sort of like starts going. She's like, I just couldn't handle it. I just couldn't stand it. It hit this was all I could handle. I just had to do something. And we looked over, we asked her husband, and her husband was like, I'm right there with her, and I came to show my support. And I mean, just to see this cute little old southern country couple that you would have never in your wildest of dreams ever thought would be so liberal. Here they were, saying, you know what, this this goes beyond politics. This goes beyond policy, anything. This is human rights, and they're being taken from us. And we have to stand up, put our foot down. And to see that was just, I wish I would have gotten that couple's little names. They were so cute.
They were. And so what's funny about that is because you and I have actually talked about this a few times, but the fact that you started out by saying you wouldn't have expected them to be here. Like, can you talk a little bit about what you thought about them and why you think you might have thought that, and then kind of how that influenced your going into the rest of the day, or why that's so important?
Well, I mean, I would say the reason we weren't expecting, or I know I wasn't expecting to see them there, is because I looked at them and I saw, my family. They looked like someone that could come from my family. It looked like someone that I had gone to high school with. It looked like someone that lived next to my grandparents. And so, it's bad, but you just automatically make assumptions and stereotypes. And the stereotype was, southern, white, older, country family, they're gonna go Trump, not pro-women. So we made that assumption, and then we started talking to them, and it gave me hope when they came out and we're like, oh no, we're right here. We're tired of people trying to speak for us. We're tired of people trying to take away, and say that we believe in this and we believe in that, and we don't believe in any of it.
Yeah.
I mean, for her to do that, and they had to have been in their 60s. For her to have been to that point, to actually stand up, she had been putting up with so much.
Yeah, and think about them in their, they still live in, the Villaricas of the world, and what they probably face when they go home.
Yep. And you gotta look at it from her. They actually had to plan it for us. It was a couple miles for us to get to the march. If that, no big deal. But for her and her husband to get there and to take MARTA, they had to get up, plan it out. Okay, we're gonna which train station we're gonna drive to. We're gonna drive an hour to, and then we're we gotta go here, And then we have to get off at what station to go where. I mean, they had to plan it out, and it was, you know, when you're talking a little country bumpkin into the big city, it's a scary.
And they probably don't ride MARTA very often.
I think they even said that was like their first time on MARTA or something. I mean, yeah, you don't find a lot that will do that.
Yeah, and do you remember, I don't really remember how packed the train was. Like, I remember there were some people at the MLK station, but do you remember more about that day?
Going there, you know, my husband dropped us off at the train station, and we got there, and that's when I started getting really excited, because, I mean, it's like, oh my God. And then when we got down there to get on the train, the tracks were just crazy. And then we got on the train to take it, and we were smushed in there, like crammed in like sardines, and everybody was just like, woo, you know, because nobody was, I think everybody was kind of like us. They were expecting a few thousand, you know.
Yeah.
And to see that many people showing up, we were getting more and more excited, and it gave us all a little more hope and a little more happiness. And you look around, and it was just a sea of little country folk, people from every race, every religion, every gender, every sex. You know, sex and gender are two separate things, but so that's why I have to list them all. But I mean, it's just across the board, they were there, and it just.
Yeah, what did you, because you bringing that up is something that I think is interesting, and I've heard it kind of on both sides, but there were lots of different people there from lots of different backgrounds, and everybody had different issues.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, the fact that all these different people were marching for different reasons? Is that good, bad?
I think it's good. Well, I mean, I think it's bad that we were having to march for so many different reasons, but I think it's good that we all were like, okay, we have all of these things going so wrong, so bad, let's join together and let's show our, I don't want to say anger, our disapproval of what's going on in government right now, to where they will have to listen. They have to sit up and realize how many people they have pissed off. Because, I mean, for me, I mean, it wasn't just one issue for me either. It wasn't just, you know, it wasn't just the abortion rights. It wasn't the civil rights. It wasn't, I mean, it's just little, not just every little aspect of my life has been influenced by this moron. I'm trying to be polite.
No,
To everyone to come together like that was really, really cool. And you would see Muslim women, and you would see Christian women, and you would see atheists, but it didn't matter, because we were all like, you know what, this is our country.
Yeah.
This is the United States of America, and we are representing the United States of America. So we may have different values, but our morals are the same, and this is what we want to have. You know, we want to be heard on this, and we don't want any of these people's rights to be stomped on.
We saw a lot of cool signs.
Yes.
Uh,
I have hundreds of pictures. I need to go through them.
Oh, good, yeah, if you can send those, I keep meaning to go through mine too, and send them in. Do you remember any that stand out? Any people or signs or like particular visions from that day?
Let's see, and I've done the science march since then, so I have to remember which signs were for what. But of course, the science march people were in the women's march.
A lot of them had the same signs, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And we can come back to this.
Yeah, because I can't think of any signs like right off. If I went through my phone, I could be like, oh yeah, and this one, but yeah, that wouldn't be very exciting.
Well, let me ask about this. Do you remember when we first got to the march, first people we saw were Jonathan and Kathleen? Did you know them before?
I didn't.
The neighbors from the other side?
Mm-hmm.
And granted, you didn't know them, but knowing that they were your neighbor,
Yeah.
like, how did that make you feel, that you walk up and immediately we know people there?
I never felt uncomfortable. I get nervous in crowds. And here we were in a crowd of almost, 65,000, 70,000 people. And not one time did I get nervous. I felt like I was in a group among my friends and peers. And that's the first time I've been able to go and do something like that and just be really immersed into the crowd and not sticking out like a sore thumb, which I tend to stick out more normally. I've been in corporate America for a long time. My views are not well liked in corporate America.
You were among friends that day.
Yes. Did not meet a stranger anywhere.
It's true.
No fights, no strangers, no trash, nothing. It was all neat and clean. People were looking for porta potties. People were, looking for trash cans. Let's do this. Oh, excuse me, ma'am. Oh, excuse me. Oh, there's a fire truck coming. Okay, let's split the road. Oh, police need to get by. Okay, let's go this way. Let's, get out of the way. When we were at the end of it, we went to listen to some of the speeches and the poor police officers that were standing in front of us. I mean, those dudes, they were just doing their job. They weren't doing it to be mean. They had their little thing and they were told what they could and couldn't do. And at that time, they were told they could not let anybody in that gate.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit about what that situation was?
Yeah, so we were at the speakers were inside this little kind of fenced-in park area, and we were trying to get inside, but for some reason, the police officers were told to not let anybody else in. So there was plenty of room inside to where we could have heard them speak. I would have loved to have heard at least, John Lewis say hello, but we didn't get to because we weren't allowed in, but it was not. It was the police, it was their fault, but individually it wasn't their fault. And we recognized the difference, that yes, these are police officers keeping us out, but this police officer in front of me is not the one that made the rules. So we are not gonna take our anger out on this officer standing in front of me, because everything is beyond his control. So that's how most of us around us were taking it, and we were all, kind of pissed. And people would come out and they still wouldn't let us back in, but we were like, all right, they're doing their job, let's just chill. And then this guy comes up and he starts getting in the officer's face and he's screaming at the top of the lungs saying that his rights are being stumbled on and it was illegal for them to keep him out because it was a public park and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, all sorts of stuff. I mean, you may remember better.
Was he a journalist? Is that the same guy?
There were two different guys. The journalist guy he was wanting to get it because the rest of his people were inside and he was trying to get a better angle and he was told to come to that gate. And they talked to him and he finally was just like, okay, and he's like, okay, look, I'll go around to the other gate. So that's what he did. But I mean, he still didn't ever get really disrespectful, but it was the guy that came out that was there when that happened and then stood there and it got to the point where he was screaming so bad at the officers that I think finally I snapped. And was just like, when I snap, I don't really remember what I say, but we all kind of turned around and we were like, look, you need to back off. These cops are just trying to do their job. They're wanting to, they don't want to be stuck here watching, babysitting all of us, but they have to. So just give them a break, let them do what they're being told to do, and we'll do what we want, we can do, and then we can part ways. But you don't have to be hollering and screaming and getting all up in their face. And you don't need to be screaming in my ears because I'm trying to see who's speaking.
Do you remember, because being in that small kind of confined area right in front of the gate and that guy come up, there were probably about 20 of us there. And you said something, I definitely remember that. Were other people saying things to him too, and what were they saying?
But yeah, they started jumping on him too. They were like, yes, you got to stop this. This is ridiculous. You're turning out to be just like them. We don't want to be one of them. Quit giving us a bad rap. Just like the anarchists that were on the TVs, during a lot of the other rallies and protests and stuff. And they don't care what you're protesting. They're going to be there because they're anarchists and so they burn things and that kind of stuff. They saw like a video of it on the news or whatever, and they were trying to say that they were, other women marchers or Trump marchers or Trump organizers. You would see them on both sides of it, but the bottom line is we didn't want the media to have any reason to be mad at us.
That was going to be my next question. Is like, why was it so important that day to be well behaved and to keep shenanigans like that guy out?
Because that guy is the one that gives us all a bad rap. Because if that one guy, if he would have been able to keep up his tirade that he was on, the way his temper was just so out of control, I don't know what would have happened, but I mean, it was bad enough to where he may have ended up being arrested because the cops are being as cool as they can be, but come on.
Yeah.
When you have somebody screaming at you like that, you can only take so much. But I think if we wouldn't have been there, it would have been, it could have turned out a lot worse, and that would have been that's what would have made the news. Angry protester gets out of hand. Angry protester does this. Oh, that's just because they're wild-eyed, crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. See, this is why we don't need them in power. This is why women, even though it was a man doing all the talking, it still would have been blamed on women, because everything's blamed on us.
Yeah, how important do you think it is, the way the media portrays it?
It makes a huge difference. And that's why it's so frustrating when, these things are going on, and instead of concentrating on what the big overall attitude of the entire thing is good, they'll pick and choose little side things that are really bad, or just like the Black Lives Matter. And that's a whole other thing that got me started in on, the Women's March.
Yeah, did you go to the Black Lives Matter march?
I tried, but I due to health reasons, I couldn't go down there in March, but yeah.
So it sounds like you'd already kind of started thinking about being more politically active.
I guess you could say that, because we had talked about going to the Black Lives Matter marches and stuff.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, that was a whole other thing that fired me up. It's just like seeing the way people were portrayed, how African Americans were portrayed during the marches were ridiculous, but not once was it shown, Atlanta, I saw the one quote, it was like 2 people had been arrested the entire night of the marches of the Black Lives Matter movement, and 2 people. That's less than on a normal Friday night.
That's true.
That didn't make the news. What made the news was the truck that was stuck in traffic and people were on top of it. What didn't make the news is the guy that was in the truck who did an interview said, "Oh no, I told him to get on the truck. I thought it was hilarious. It's not like I could go anywhere." He's like, "We were just having a good old time." Oh, so you don't want the real story. You just want to let people see what they want to see. And if I hear one more time about how that was so disrespectful to Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King would have never done protests like these Black Lives Matter people are. Because Martin Luther King knew how to respect people. Are you telling me Martin Luther King decided to he went and got a little, what you call it, an order so he could march through Selma? What am I thinking of? Oh.
You're talking about the,
yeah.
you're talking about Selma, the march.
Yeah, but what you have to get to be able to have a march.
Oh gosh, now I've forgotten.
Yeah, it's a stupid.
A permit?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do you really think Martin Luther King went and got permits in all these little cities and towns that he went and marched through in all of these to get his word out? No. It's our right as Americans to be able to do this kind of stuff. And that's it.
Yeah.
But people kept saying, well, if it was Martin Luther King, this is a total disgrace, and they're doing this right around the corner from his house. And I'm like, people saying that don't know shit about Martin Luther King. They haven't bothered to read anything other than the one speech. They've probably never, read his story, his actual story of his life. I just keep going off all these little tangents. See, I just think of all these little things that just irritate me.
Well, they're connected, and certainly
It's all
if they're
interconnected.
Yeah, if the Women's March makes you think about that, I mean, you mentioned before that people were at that march for lots of different reasons, and you've kind of talked some about sort of a build-up to this, the Black Lives Matter and the other things that happened, and then it's like on January 21st, like you feel like you need to do something about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, and this was like fresh out, like Castile had just, had been shot and killed by the police officer. I mean, it was just, golly, I can't believe the guy got off. I mean, can't even get a grand jury indictment on him? What the fuck are people thinking? to get a grand jury indictment is just like saying, hey, we think that guy might have robbed the store about 50 miles from here. You know, it's 50 miles away and it was 30 minutes ago and he doesn't have a car. So there's really no way he could have gotten there, but he might have been able to get a hold of a spaceship to fly over there really quick to rob the store and then come back. Okay, we're gonna indict you. I mean, that's all you need for a freaking indictment. And these cops are getting off. I mean, my brother's in Atlanta PD, so don't try to tell me I'm taking sides. I'm not taking sides. I'm taking the side of human lives. I mean, when people are being shot, and see, maybe it makes me go off on it. This is the whole Atlanta Women's March was about. It was all these little things from all these different organizations and politics and just your beliefs, your religion, your everything you can possibly think of to do with human life was now being picked away at and picked on and told you're wrong and told you're less than and told you're not worthy of. It's a culmination of all of that. That's what came out in the Atlanta Women's. Yeah.
I know. So what do you hope that your role is in this by going out and marching and being more active?
I know, I mean, being a woman, I'm not going to be taken as seriously as a man. But being a white woman, I will be taken much more serious than a black woman, a black man, a Muslim woman, man, an Indian. I will be taken more seriously based off of, just because of my white privilege. And I do have white privilege. And if you want to fucking argue with me on that, I will take you to school because you don't. I'm so sick and tired of people saying, what white privilege? I worked for everything I got. Hey, jackass, it's not saying you didn't work for everything you have, but you're also not seeing those, you know, implicit behind the scenes little get out of free jail things that were handed to you, you know, oh, like when you were going, you know, 55 and a 50, but the cop let you go by because it was a white guy driving the car, not a black guy. If you would have been a black guy, you would have gotten pulled over. That's your white privilege. So take that white privilege and wear it well, but just realize you have that privilege and try to get that privilege given to everybody. And once everyone is treated equally, then the white privilege goes away. But until then, we have, and it's not like I, you know, want it, but I do have white privilege. And so I'm figuring, you know what, this is an advantage. And especially being a female, I'm not taken as, people do not react to me as violently because I'm a woman, and so I'm automatically thought of as weak. So people don't think I have I'm white, I'm a woman, I'm blonde, I'm Southern. People aren't gonna think I have a gun underneath my little jacket here and I'm gonna shoot you.
Do you?
Well, I might. Except I don't own guns. But, so there's always that assumption, and so I feel like the assumptions made based off of the way I look, those assumptions should be passed on to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And that was another thing about the Women's March, is we're tired of seeing, it ties so much back into the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, the two were so intertwined that it's really hard to pull the two separate.
You know,
Because
there's, oh, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say, I mean, because yeah, they're different issues, but one is fighting systemic racism, the other is fighting systemic sexism, racism. It's systemic issues.
Yeah.
So it's all coming from the same thing. This Black Lives Matter is specifically focusing in on, you know, people being killed by cops, which cops should be held to a much higher standard than anyone else. That's why I don't understand people are like, well, they have a stressful job. Well, you know what? They chose that job. The job didn't choose them. They chose to take that job. And if they're going to take that job, then they need to make sure that they're going to be held to a higher standard, and they have to realize that they are taking their lives into jeopardy every day when they put that uniform on. But that's part of their job, and they need to, as they tell us little white snowflakes, suck it up, buttercup, and get the fuck over it and quit killing people.
So, in light of the Black Lives Matter march that happened several months or about a year before that. And you talked a little bit about the law enforcement guy at the end of the march.
Mm-hmm. Sorry,
What
I
about-
tend to, shoo, shoo.
No,
Yeah.
because this is all, I mean, it is all interconnected. I mean, it's a very politically active time. So you talk about whatever this brings up for you. Yeah, it's all, if it's connected to you, then let's talk about it. What about other law enforcement officers? Did you see a lot of them during the march?
We did. They were all really, really nice and very cordial. And I don't know if you were looking the same way I was, but they were like some on top of the Capitol, and we all waved and we cheered them, and they were just like, waved and they smiled. And I mean, they were all really, really nice and really, really cool. I mean, it's like the one time the fire truck, I don't know if you remember that, when the fire truck had to go down the road. And you see all the people are like, oh, fire truck coming, and there wasn't any screaming, there wasn't anything. It was just, everybody just kind of stopped. Okay, fire truck's gone, So that was a whole other thing, that was a big issue during the Black Lives Matter, protest when that was going on. Well, how are the fire trucks getting down the road? Well, how are the police? Well, what if that was your father? They need to get to the hospital. It's like, people, if you bothered to be involved in this stuff, you would see that these are normal people going to these marches. I don't know how many times I read for the Black Lives Matter movement when it was going on, how, well, these people didn't work. These people didn't work, so they had time to do that. Maybe they had jobs and worked 9 to 5 like everybody else. They wouldn't have time to go waste and sit on the side of the road and try to stop, I-20 and 75, 85. And Martin Luther King didn't do that.
Do you remember what time the Black Lives Matter protests were?
Yeah, they were after 5 on the weekends. I'm like, really? You work at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday? I mean, if you do, you do, but these people are actually educated, and so they have normal desk jobs.
Yeah. Did you see anybody, like any opposition protesters, any pro-Trump people?
I think I may have seen one guy, but honestly, I don't know. I don't even know if I pointed him out to you or not. When we first got off the MARTA train, because one, we were just blown away by what we saw, everything, and there was one guy standing off to the side, and he had on like camouflage kind of gear, and he had on a backpack. And I think he had, I didn't see a gun, but I think he may have been thinking he was gonna be like, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm gonna go down here and kick some ass. And he comes down there and he sees, one, that we're not causing any issues, and two, that he's fucking outnumbered, and go ahead and start some shit. You think women will scream and whine and cry before? Just wait till you get 65,000 of them in your face.
Oh, yeah.
So, because he just kind of sat back on the rail and just kind of sat there. So, I still don't know, like, if he was, I don't know what he was there for, but he looked out of place.
I don't even remember that guy.
I don't even think I pointed him out to you, because I mean, it took me a minute. So I was just kind of like,
You don't look like you ought to be at a women's march.
no. But that's another thing I loved about the women's marches. I mean, it was literally, I was almost 50-50 men versus women. I mean, it was not versus, but men and women. It was the biggest mix. But that's what it takes to, and this is what sucks, especially in the United States, that for anyone to be heard, any of the lesser classes to be heard, the privileged class has to speak up for them. The privileged sex has to speak up for them. So that's where the white males have got to get off of their asses and start speaking up for what is being done to the women in this country. This is where it's going to take white people to speak up to prevent what's happening to the African American culture today. This is where it's going to take all of us to speak up for what's happening to the Muslim people in the country today. You have to speak up, because the class below you, you have to be their voice to get them treated properly. Because they're not going to be heard. They scream and they cry, and they're just making a big deal out of nothing.
So do you think, based on that, if it had been 60 to 70,000 women only, how would the impact of that versus this mixed crowd that you're talking about?
It would have, me being a woman, I would be like, yeah, go women. But in my mind, I would sit here and go, we don't have anybody else fighting for us. We're not gonna have the same impact. But I think, Washington had to stand up and listen when every single type across the board person was screaming, this is wrong.
Yeah.
So hopefully, well, obviously, as I'm sitting here saying, hopefully something will change, but yet yesterday, Jackass coming out with the whole, was it yesterday the transgender thing came out? Because, I haven't watched I quit watching the news, so.
Well, what about, so, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when we were in the thick of everything,
I remember when John Lewis went by us.
I keep meaning to ask about that. Yeah, talk about that. We'll talk about that first.
Oh my God. We were we were kind of just standing there. It hadn't started yet, and there were some speeches further on up or whatever, but we couldn't hear what was going on. We were just standing here, and as the people come from behind us, and you could tell it was somebody important because they were, clearing the way, and we realized that it was John Lewis, our congressman. I mean, but it's just like to see the civil rights activist, to have seen the pictures, and then to see him walk by you and to be a part of this history and to be a part of that movement, it was just like, I mean, both of us looked at each other. I mean, here I am in the middle of 65,000, I'm crying now, but I mean, 65,000 people, I started like, oh my God, it's John Lewis, I mean, but it was such a powerful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and kind of like what you're talking about, somebody of that stature being present at the march.
Who had stood right with Martin Luther King Jr., who was in the pictures, who was his, partner in crime. To see him walking in the women's march, standing up for us, was really, really powerful. And I wish I would have known there was the lady that was there, and I've seen her a couple times since, and I always forget. I'm like, oh, that's her name, and I keep meaning to tell you, but I keep forgetting her name.
Yeah, I felt awful to not know her name.
Yeah.
So it's a women's march, and we don't know the woman that's with John Lewis. Clearly, she's also important.
Yeah, she was really emotional. I mean, and she was like, thank you so much for being here. And I mean, that just got me, I'm like, oh my gosh, she was as excited as I think all of us were.
Yeah.
It was just so great to see that many people in the streets of Atlanta in such shitty ass weather.
Yeah.
For it to just become all nice and everybody is getting along so well, and it was such a happy march. You look back at some of the civil rights, well, just about all the civil rights marches, and how all of those ended up with people in jail. Had, some dead, hundreds injured all the time, and for us to be able to do this march, that does show the progression that our country has made since the 60s until now, to where we were able to handle, have a march that had way more people than any of the civil rights marches were ever able to have, and it to be done in a manner that no one was injured whatsoever is pretty miraculous.
Yeah, and that goes back a lot to the law enforcement.
It goes to both sides.
Yeah,
it goes
exactly.
back to law enforcement, it goes back to us, it goes back to people realizing that there has to be some level of respect on both sides to get through this.
Yeah.
Without that respect, then you're all just animals.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, respect on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
The question I was thinking about earlier was, do you remember when we were right there with John Lewis and all that?
Mm-hmm.
Several times trying to check there was no cell service.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, they need more cows.
Yeah, exactly. But we could see the helicopter up in the sky, so we knew they were filming and things like that. What did you think when you got home and you heard how many people were not only in Atlanta, but in all these other places, when you saw the media coverage of how many people showed up?
I mean, it gave me chills. To know that I was part of something so much bigger than me. I mean, there's no way, I mean, yeah, it's just little on me. I don't make a lot of money. I don't have a fancy car, house, job, none of that kind of stuff. I'm just little on me. There's not much I can do. I just, I'm getting by day to day. But I was able to put my two little feet out there. And what happened that day was there were a lot of other people that are just like me that we all put our two little feet out there. And it became just this huge, massive amount of people, not just here, but in DC, in Antarctica, in London, I mean, across the world. And to have the world, like that was another thing that I really took away from it, was that it showed that the world knew that Trump was not representative of majority of Americans, and they weren't gonna just leave us out to hang, leave us out to dry. Just, write us all up, put us all in one pot, let's throw it away, take the trash out. No. Like, I felt more supported then than I probably ever have.
Yeah, because there were thousands of people in lots of cities around the globe.
Oh my gosh, yes. The Antarctica one just sticks out, so I've seen it. But yeah, they also did that for the Science March too.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually very true.
But that's, I mean, since doing the Women's March, and it had let me pull away with such a foundation of hope and determination, that's what made me do the Science March. Because the Women's March, Science March, they're all just like I was saying earlier, they're all interrelated. And the next time Atlanta decides to have a march, I will most likely be there, as long as it's not like go KKK. I mean, well, it is
A march
Georgia.
for things that you believe in.
Yes, then I will definitely take part in it. And by the way, I don't know if I've told you this, like, I don't mind people calling us snowflakes. Why? I'm like, why? I don't know how that got started. It just popped up on Facebook and then calling it, because I didn't even realize that they were referring to us.
Yeah,
as
what
snowflakes.
exactly does that mean? Because I don't think I've heard it, but I don't really understand the pejorative context.
Well, I asked, and the way it was explained to me is because we're all snowflakes, because we're all too sensitive to touch, that we just melt away with the slightest little thing, and we just disappear. So we need our safe rooms and our safe spaces and stuff like that. And the way I took upon it being called a snowflake, I'm like, that's actually pretty awesome, because one little flake is just, doesn't cause any problem, it goes along its way, but you get enough of us together and we can take down mountains, so don't fuck with us.
So much.
Yeah, so I don't mind being called snowflake. Go ahead. You got me and my, million of friends, then we'll take it.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say about that day before we start talking about since?
God, that was such a great day. I mean, I think when I got home, I was glued to the TV just watching. Because, when we were down there in the moment, we didn't know, what was going on or anything like that. Even when we were down there, we didn't have, had no idea the actual amounts of people. Yeah. Remember when we turned the turn and you could, like the Atlanta sign, but you could see it and it was trailing all the way. I mean, you could just, for I don't know how long, almost a mile of people.
Yeah, I think, because you could see all the way around, and then when we got to the far end, you could see all the way back.
Yeah, that was really, but even then I didn't grasp like how many people it truly was. Yeah. And to see that, it was really cool. I wish I could have been at the one in DC though. I had friends that were there.
Yeah.
But we gotta stand up for Atlanta.
Exactly. This way.
This is my town.
Exactly. Atlanta, you got to do it in your town, put Atlanta on the map, and granted we only had 70,000 people, but.
I think it would have been more if the weather would have been better. And it definitely would be more if it was held now. Rather than that. See, we saw what was coming.
Yeah, let's talk about the momentum, because you talked a little bit about the Science March, and there have been several marches, but talk about kind of how things have gone between the march and now, both ups and downs. What's changed?
I've been kind of let down since, because I was expecting there to be some type of follow-up. on somebody's part, something to help direct, because, you know, we went to the one thing, we wrote the letters, and that was really cool, but we haven't had any kind of thing since then, so it's like, I wish there was somewhere that we could, me as a normal person, little peon, could go to say, okay, this is, and it will detail exactly what needs to be done to give you some type of direction. Because right now, I'm just, you know, well, I'm like, oh, well, this is bad, oh, this is bad, this is, what do I focus on, you know, it's just so much. Where do we need to focus our energy on? And I wish there were people were trying to do more to take the momentum that we have going and push forward with it. But I don't know if it's just that we're getting such pushback right now that even to keep it where it's at is hard. Yeah, that was a big blow, Trump.
When you say it was such a big blow, what specifically?
Well, just how he's now saying that, you know, the transgenders are not allowed in the military. I mean, that was just out of fucking left field. Like, what are you doing that for? Why are you trying to, you know, here you go again, just, there's a squirrel, is that what you're trying to do? You're trying to distract us from all the other shit that's going on in the administration right now? Okay, so you want to distract us, but you know what, do it some other way. Don't damage an entire population. I can't remember the guy that did it. He was one of the one of the SEALs, Navy SEALs that's transgendered, and she came out and was talking about, you know, what was going on, and she said there were, or no, it was Caitlyn Jenner had done the numbers, and she said there were like almost 50,000, I think. Can't remember the exact number of transgendered individuals in the services today. So, and Trump has just, you know, basically fired them over a tweet. I mean, how, that's not very presidential. I mean, people say that all the time, was that presidential? You know what, the way he's doing it, taking a shit in your pants will be presidential by the end of this term. Sorry.
You're gonna get a shout out probably about that one. So I heard you know, you're talking about, yeah, you wish there was something more kind of to keep the momentum going. What do you hope will happen kind of going forward?
We need to come up with a way to disseminate actual facts versus non-facts. When people talk about, let's just take Planned Parenthood in for example. Planned Parenthood does so much for women's health that it's ridiculous to even think about shutting them down because of one issue. If you don't agree with them on that one issue, then that's fine. Because even though abortion is legal, Planned Parenthood has taken it beyond that and said, well, you know what, we'll use government funding for everything except for abortions. Abortions are only going to be funded by privately held or privately given money.
Yeah.
The rest of the government money, only for this other stuff. Abortions, only with the private money.
Yeah.
So they separate them out. They don't have to do that, but they do. But even then, so you want to take away Planned Parenthood because of abortions, then how in the hell are these women going to be able to get these services from other places? You can't just take it away. You have to find something to replace it with. And then why do you want to replace it? Why not just use the services that are already there and they're set up? I mean, come on.
If there were something that kind of gave you concrete steps about
How I could go about helping,
yeah,
that would be quite helpful. Because at this point in time, I'm kind of floundering. I don't, can only talk so much, and my few friends that we have left. My field of friends is getting smaller and smaller. It has to do with age, but it also has to do with I just don't want to put up with some dumbass's views anymore. I would like to have someone, go, okay, here's what you could do. Okay, we need help doing this, or hey, write to this person at this address. Have it to where I don't have to go to 50,000 different, websites or get,
Yeah.
and search for it. Somebody take all the time that it takes, and I know it's just me being, yeah, it may be me being lazy, but you know what, we're working full-time. You have your kid, we've got our houses, we have all this other stuff going on. If there's other people that have the time, they've already done the research, then why can't they just put it out and disseminate it out to the group?
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
give you things, not everybody can do all that, but you're saying you still want to keep the momentum going.
Mhm. We gotta do something, we've got all this energy, and, I mean, there's, oh, God. I mean, we're getting beat up, left and right. And we're fighting back, but damn it, we gotta fight harder.
Yeah, are things better or worse or about the same as you thought on January 21st compared to now, about 6 months later? Where are we?
This is what I saw coming over a year ago, and this is why I was freaking out over a year ago, and no one understood why. Well, you may have, but I mean, most people did not understand why. Oh, he's not gonna be able to do that much, it'll take longer.
Yeah.
No, it's not taking him long at all. I mean, how long did it take him with the travel ban when it did that? Thank God, how long did it take us to shut that shit down? But, hell, we didn't even have time to get to the airport. We were gonna go to the airport, we didn't even have time to get to the airport. Yeah, I mean, it's just every time we turn around, it's just something else. It's going, we gotta get rid of it. See, this is ping, ping, ping. This electoral college just needs to get out too. It should have been done away with years and years and years ago. Because my vote, right now, the way it's set up, my vote doesn't matter because I'm in a red state. So no matter how blue I bleed,
Yeah.
it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, kind of what's your outlook for, say, the next 6 months or the next year and a half?
Hopefully we'll be sitting here, I'm not gonna say in the next 6 months, but in a year and a half from now, we're gonna come back, we'll be in the same room, and we're gonna be laughing about how we were able to get that shit out so quickly and so seamlessly. And I don't know how we did it, but we're gonna be laughing about it and going, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't think of da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I don't know what that da-da-da-da-da-da is. But in a year and a half, my hope is we're gonna be right back here saying, that's what had to be done.
Or at least sitting on the front porch with beer and hay. Talking about that.
And if it's not, we'll be sitting in our crawl space with a beer in our hand because the apocalypse is coming, because there's not gonna be too much left.
Well, that's my next question, which is, okay,
On the
what's
other
the flip
end-
side of that? What do you fear? What will happen?
I mean, what don't I fear? We've got North Korea already just about hitting some nuclear missiles over to the U.S. soil, and Trump just keeps pissing them off more. Now he's starting to take back away, all the stuff that Obama put in place for Cuba, so we're gonna start pissing off all the Cubans. And we're starting to take, we're not taking in the refugees anymore, so we're pissing off an entire generation of Muslims across the entire world, even though not one refugee has ever done anything to the United States soil. I don't even think there's a refugee done anywhere. Any of the bombings or anything, they've all been people they weren't refugees, they were there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know at first, they thought a couple of them were Syrian refugees, but those were fake passports from the Paris attacks. But yeah.
What's your general outlook then, kind of as looking forward?
See, that's another thing that bothers me too. I mean, this is the first time that if things keep going the way they are, my outlook is not good. And that's just, I'm usually a pretty positive person, but right now it's really hard to find stuff to be positive about. I think that's why I get so emotional about the Women's March, because it was such a positive part of this craptastic thing we call life right now. There's nothing going right. Wait a minute, there's gotta be something going right.
There are,
Well, I mean, Sean Spicer did step down.
and you now know that there are these hundreds of thousands of like-minded people out there. People
true.
that you may not expect, like the couple
Yes,
on
the couple,
MARTA.
yes.
Things like that, and does that make you a little bit more hopeful?
That part does. That little couple, that's kind of like my whole, my saving grace. I'm like, when I get really bad, down, it's like, oh my God, it's not gonna change, it's not gonna change. I kind of see that little couple sitting in their little seats on MARTA.
Yeah.
Gives you hope.
So what would, 'cause I want to, in general, kind of ask about your advice to other people, but like, what would you tell baby Quinn, my little son, if he was like, hey, tell me
Bulk
about
up.
this? Yeah.
Get ready to throw some punches. Well, see, I don't have to tell Q much because, one, I mean, he's coming from you and Ned. So you're gonna raise him right. Both of y'all are really, and I'm always like, educate, educate, educate. Well, I don't have to tell you that because, you're already gonna do that, so I don't have to tell Quinn that because it's already gonna be done for him. All I can say to Q is just he's gonna be a big guy. And it's gonna be on him to stand up for the rest of us. So when he's 20, 30 years old and you're gonna be looking up at him and you're gonna be saying, get your ass out there and get on that line and march for me, he's gonna be like, yes, ma'am.
He's already been to a couple of marches, so he's good. Is there anything else, did you, just to circle back around, have you thought of any chants or signs or anything like that that really stand out for you?
What was the one chant, this is what democracy looks like? What was this is what democracy looks like?
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like. Yeah, that one was pretty awesome. That one was pretty cool. See, I keep thinking of signs, but because the science march was the last place I went, those are the signs that I keep thinking of.
Yeah, and if you can think of any from that, and
Yeah.
even if they're hard to explain, make sure you send in pictures of that.
Yeah. Well, the Trump pussy pictures, like the those were funny when they came out.
The one that stands out for me, I know it's not my interview, but do you remember the little girl when we were walking, she was probably 2 maybe? And she was holding a sign, she was on her mom's shoulders, and she was holding a sign that said, protect my future.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Look humble.
Yes, it was. When you see something like that, you realize that it's like, okay, I'm not only fighting for me, but I'm fighting for people, there's nothing she can do. I mean, she can't even vote. So somebody's got to stand up for her.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can get this shit fixed so by the time she gets old enough, she's not going to be dealing with this stuff. She's going to be dealing with, like, I don't know, space issues. Because the world will be a better place.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I think that's it. Other than fuck Trump.
Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
participating today.